Hello, everyone. Good morning. Am I audible? It seems some issue with my mic before. Sorry. Hey, good morning. Apologies for a couple of minutes late. All right. So today we have Jivita presenting SQL for data science. This is going to be a four-part session, 2 hours each, so 8 hours together, today and tomorrow, and then again the next Saturday and Sunday. Jivita is a data scientist with Rubix. He is active in many projects as a data scientist and also delivered sessions for data science sessions for more than 200 people, and a very active enthusiast in data science research as well. We have Jivita today to deliver this session, SQL for data science. Before I hand it over to Jivita, a bit about SQL. SQL is a structured query language. It is the language, or the basically a language we use for talking to databases. When you look at the data science has a data as a main part. So it's all begins with bringing the data into our into our project. About 70 to 80% of the business data, right, in any industry, any company, is actually stored in a structured format, which is SQL format. And we use relational database management system to handle this data. Well, popular ones are Oracle SQL, Microsoft SQL, well, MySQL, open source as well. So these are the kind of databases you deal in a business project usually. All right. So it's really important to know the SQL to get this data into your pipelines and to do the data science work. In a typical data science, in typical database management, you do CRUD operation: create, read, update, and delete. As a data scientist, you are mostly concerned about reading, because you really don't create the data. The data is already there in the databases, right? It is put in there by the business applications, right? Updated by the business applications. What you do is read them and do your project, right? Maybe a predictive analytic model, etc. So we are mostly focused on reading the data, and more precisely, effectively reading the data you want, with all kinds of the filters and the conditions and the aggregations, etc., etc. So this session is going to be mostly focused as SQL for data science perspective. So we'll be also discussing about other operations, but 80-90% focus is how to connect to the databases, how to bring in the data to our pipelines, data pipelines, and then how we will basically apply different conditions and bring in the data, different joins from different tables, bring in the data for our data analysis purpose. So that's going to be a session. I thank Jivita for taking time, and yeah, all the best to everyone in this learning SQL for data science. Over to you, Jivita.
Thank you, sir. Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome you all for the SQL for data science webinar. Myself, Jivita, as sir said, I'm working as a data scientist as well as data science mentor in Rubix company, as well as the partner company of Rubix, that is DataMites. Are you the one who is aspiring to become a data scientist, or the one who has learned all the skills related to data science, but still you lack in still you lack in SQL skill? Then this webinar is basically for you. Nowadays, SQL is one of the most popular in-demand skills in the market. I don't know whether you know it or not. If you see recent job postings on LinkedIn, or probably in different job portals like Indeed, Naukri, you can see every job postings will be mentioning a skill related to a SQL. But sadly, SQL is one of the underdepreciated among the top skills that is required by data scientists, not just in India, even the worldwide. That's really an insane thing. And we could see many are aspiring to enter into a data science domain. Many people from different domains are getting into this domain. And the thing is, people just only focus on learning things related to machine learning and just the Python. They think these are the only two skills in order to become a data scientist, but that's not a real thing. When you see your data, as long as you see data, the SQL will always be an important thing, and you have to learn the skill. Okay.
Jivita, could you share the screen? I think still is my screen. Try to share your screen.
Yes, I'm seeing.
I can still see mine. Oh, okay.
Can you see my screen now?
1 second.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's begin the session. So this webinar is basically happening for 8 hours. We'll be focusing more on the things that are relevant for data science. And also some topics can also be used by the people who are looking into a data analysis thing. So firstly, let's discuss a few things like how data has evolved, how database has evolved, all those things. So for this entire session, for today's session, the things that I'm going to discuss are like introduction to database, data models, RDBMS and its types. And also I'll be giving an introduction to SQL. And then let's see how to do installation of MySQL workbench. And then let's see how to create a database and tables. Yes, that's this topic is not that important, but still it's good to know. Okay, and then finally, let's see how to modify tables. Okay, so these are the topics that I'm going to discuss for this entire session. For 2-hour session. Okay, done with the content? So I need to start this question with, I need to start this session with a question as, we know data. So data science is all about our data. So data can be of a different types. Yes, data can be a text, data can be a number, data can be images, data can be video, audio. Yes. Okay, we have different data and we can take all these data from different sources. Let's imagine somewhere around 50 years ago, how data was collected and how data was managed. Any idea? So 50 years ago, if you think about if you have seen or if you have read in books, basically data was collected, there was no technology, there was no smartphones, there was no internet. During those days, people used to collect a very simple data, it was not much data. They used to collect data, and the basic and the traditional method of storing data was by storing it in a books. And the second method, the advancement of this was Excel. You can ask your mom and dad 50 years ago, somewhere if we take an example of a university, all the details of students were stored inside a book. Now we have all advancements, we store everything in a computer and we have different databases. Yes, no? So this was the traditional method which was used by the people of, before 5 decades. They used to store data in a books and Excel sheet. After that, when the emergence of technology came into an existence, that means when the concept of computer, when the concept of mobile phones, internet, social medias, so when these concepts have been evolved, when all these, technologies, when they came into a market, people started using them, and then the real challenges started. What is that real challenge? It's basically, when people started using internet, people from different domains, starting from sales, starting from business domain to a medicine level, people started gathering information from different sources. So when they collected massive information, they faced a challenge how to store that data and how to manage that. Even security is one of the important things. So people have invested their time in collecting the data. Once they have collected it, now it's a question how that will be stored and how that data will be managed. So how do you do? So all those massive data can't be stored inside a books. It can't be stored in an Excel or a spreadsheet. So then the concept of database has come. So people looked at what to do, how to manage these things, how to store. So then they started working on, creating a frameworks in order to store data. We called it as a database. So this is how evolution of database took place. In 1960 itself, when the technology of computer came into an existence, the people started storing data in single file. And then that advancement was done by IBM. So they've started one more. And then again, continuously, gradually, many databases were invented by people. And there are many databases in the current market as well. So which are basically used for storing data. All right. So now what is database? Database is basically an organized collection of data. What do you mean by that? So database basically acts as a container in order to store data. For example, let's take a university. If I take a university, universities basically collect information related to our students, related to our faculties, admins, staff of different colleges. If I say a university, there will be hundreds and thousands of colleges under that university, right? So that means it will have a massive data. Yes? How that entire data will be stored. Like if we think about 50 years ago, people used to store entire data inside a books. And now it's not that very small data. It's a massive one. Can't even imagine about that, data things. So then a concept of database was introduced where you can store all the data in a structured way. Clear about a database? Database is basically a place where you can store data. It's an organized collection of data. Yeah. Okay, database is it basically acts like a container where you can store data. Okay, that is fine. Now the question is how do you store? Something has to be there, right? In order to store that data, in order to link data and a database, there should be something. You call it as a software? Yes. So technically, DBMS, basically, it stands for Database Management System. It's a software which is used to manage databases. Basically, it helps you in order to create a data. You can store data. And once you store data inside a database, you have to use that whenever you want it, right? So what you can do is you can read them, you can update them, and also you can delete data in database. So these operations or these modifications could be done using this DBMS. So it's a software which basically helps in storing data inside a database. Okay. So there are different DBMS softwares like MySQL, IBM DB2, Oracle, SQL Server, MongoDB, Microsoft Access, and PostgreSQL. So these are the popular commercial database management systems used in different applications and different companies. Okay. Okay, now the question is why database? Okay, we know database is for storing data, and DBMS basically helps you in linking data to a database. Okay, it's a software. Now the question is why DBMS? So the first application is it can store enormous data, millions of data. Data storage is one of the application of DBMS. It basically helps you in storing data into a database. And the second application, it's a data abstraction. So what do you mean by that? So when we have a data, so basically we will have some sensitive data, like when we collect data from different organizations, let's say, so we are collecting data related to a Google company. Okay, so details might be like employee details, project details. So project details are all a sensitive data, right? So that can't be revealed to everyone. So that has to be, privately maintained. So there comes a concept of data abstraction. Data abstraction basically hides the complexity of a data from basic users. Okay, this database management system, what it does is it basically shows what is required for the users. It will hide the sensitive data. Okay, and the third advantage is basically controls data redundancy. So that means when we collect a data can have repeated data, repeated records. Sometimes you might have a repeated files as well. So how do you control that? If we store repeated data, you might face storage issue. In order to overcome that, what you can do is database management system basically controls that data redundancy. Okay, so that it will save a storage space, and also it will increase the speed of retrieval and updating kind of things. Okay, whatever you do with a database, it will be very easy when you control the data redundancy, when you have a unique and distinct records. All right. And the fourth application is multi-user access and views. Okay, let's say, so we have a database for our company. Let's say for Rubik's company, we have our own database. So basically, we are using MySQL, and we'll be storing all data related to our company in a database. Okay. So let's say I have my client from America. Okay, let's say my client is in US, and what I want to do, I want to give an access to them regarding the data that I have collected. So what you do, you need to give an access. Yes, it's not that you have to give an access for only one person. You can give access to all the people over the world. Like, like you can give access to people who is in US, people who is in UK, people who is in, Germany, something like that. Multi-user access means multiple people can access that data and they can work on that. And views also. Views basically just restrict to viewing. Like you can just look at like what is happening, what has done. So these things are basically done in database management system. Okay, we call it as multi-user access. Even at the end of this session, I'll be giving you the username and password for the database of a company where you can look at the database that I have created. And also you can see whatever operations or whatever SQL operations I do, you can just look at it. You can just see like how things are happening. And you can't do any modification because we will be restricting that access just for viewing. Okay, these controlling actions could be done using database management system. Okay, and you can see here, this is a data storage thing, and here people can access like from different places, multi-user access and also multi-user views. Okay, and also the final one is security. So security plays a very important role, right? Because data is very important for any business domain or business organizations. So when we give access to more people, there is a high risk of security. Yes, high risk in the sense people can steal, your data that might indulge in a loss for a company. So which will be very huge loss. So you have to focus on a security when you give access to multiple users. So that is basically done with this DBMS. Okay, so these are the different advantages. These are the different applications of DBMS. If you store your data in spreadsheet, anybody can access your spreadsheet. Somebody can hack your system. They can take all your important data sets, important confidential information. So that can be protected using this DBMS. That's why database management systems are evolved. Yeah. Okay, so we learned like what is database? It's basically used for storing data, and DBMS basically it's a software which helps in storing data inside a database. Now the question is how data is stored inside a database. How do you store that data? Data can be anything, right? Like data can be image, data can be text, it can be a structured one, it can be unstructured one. So how do you store all those data? Any idea? So in order to store data inside a database, like it basically tells you like how data is stored, how different tables are related, how different tables are linked. So all these things basically done with data models. So we have a concept of data models. So these data models define how the logical structure of database is modeled. It basically tells you like how data is connected to each other and how they are processed and also how they are stored inside the system. So these things by data models. Okay, so data models basically defines like how data is connected to each other and how they are processed and also how data is stored inside a system. So there are basically different data models like hierarchical model, network model, entity relationship model, relational model, and NoSQL model. So these are the different data models, and there are a few more, but we are basically focused on these 5. In that, mainly our focus, being a data scientist, being a data science engineer, being a machine learning engineer, we have to focus more on relational model. Okay. So any idea like about these models? The first model is like hierarchical model. So this hierarchical model, basically what it does is it basically organizes data in a tree form, in a tree structure form. It just creates, like a node. It will create a root and then it will create a node. It can be a parent, it can be a child, something like that. So tree-like structure, data can be stored inside a hierarchical model. Okay, and then we have a network model and we have entity relationship model. So basically, in entity relationship model, there will be entities, and also you can connect that with attributes. So entities are basically, it could be a person, it could be a location, or even an idea. Let's say, for example, if I take a school management system, it will have an entity such as teachers, students, courses, buildings, departments, yes. And attribute means it's a property that exists in an entity. For example, if I take entity as a teacher, what will be the property of a teacher? Properties will be like a salary, like probably our age, our ID number, and our qualification, whether she has done master's or she has done just a graduation, something like that. So that is basically attributes. So relationship is like relationship between two traits. That means, for example, a teacher works for a department, or I'd say, if I say professor basically works for a certain department. That basically represents a relationship. Okay, professor and let's say maths department, or let's say professor and a computer department. So that particular professor has to work for that computer science department. So that is a relationship. Yes. So entity relationship, basically it relates entities, objects, and the relationship. Okay. And the final one is a relational model, and there is also NoSQL. So first I'll speak about a NoSQL model. NoSQL model is like, it's basically used for unstructured data. Let's take an example. Yeah, I'll come back to that NoSQL after I finish relational model so that you'll understand it in a better way. Okay, so these are the different data models. All right. Yeah. So our main focus is basically our relational model. And most of the companies who are doing projects based on data science or machine learning, they are using relational model. I'll tell you why. So the first question is, what is relational model? In this model, data is basically organized in the form of two-dimensional table. So what do you mean by two-dimensional table? Table in the sense, what comes to your mind? So you just visualize. When I say table, so you should remember that, you should imagine that a table will have rows and columns. Yes. So that means when I say it's a relational model, data will be stored in the form of rows and columns. And do you remember, if you have done course on a data science, so you might have done few projects where you have used CSV format files, like where you had a data frames. Do you remember? So we used a pandas libraries in order to handle that data frames. Data frames are basically a two-dimensional table which has rows and columns. So since we deal with a data frame kind of, in order to do any machine learning or data science projects, what we do, we use data frames. That means our tables. So that's the reason why we are using relational model. Even relational model basically stores data in the form of rows and columns. For example, you can see here, have taken a table, which basically gives you an information related to a student. Okay, it's a table, or it's a record, or it's a data related to students of an engineering college. So basically, engineering means there will be a different branches, and students means there will be different students. And also there will be a unique ID for students. Here you can see student ID, name, and the branch. Okay, so basically what is there? You can see rows and you can see columns. Columns are basically student ID, name, branch. So basically columns are basically called as attributes, and whatever rows you have, like 201, John, CSE, they're all like a records. Rows are basically a records and columns are basically a attributes. Okay, remember, relational model means data will be stored in the form of rows and columns. Clear? Okay. So we got an idea like how, okay, let me come back to this. So this is a relational model. And there was one more model, right? Like NoSQL model. So NoSQL model is basically, it's used for unstructured data or in order to create a key value pair. I just want to say the difference between a relational model and a NoSQL model. Let's take an example. Of, Flipkart sales data. So let's say So when Diwali comes, sales will be very high. Like what we people do, we being a customers, we purchase many things. So because there will be many offers, we go within offers and we try to purchase things. So what we do, let's say I'm Jeevita. So I just want to purchase few things. I want to purchase laptop, I want to purchase mobile, and also I want to purchase some, clothes as well. So what I do, so today is my first day. Okay, I'll purchase laptop in the morning. Okay, so when I purchase laptop in the morning, my data will be stored inside a database, like wherever it's linked. So basically what companies do, they collect the information, right? So when I want to purchase this laptop or a mobile, what I do, I'll just log in by giving my details. Yes, I'll give my details like name, my phone number, and also I'll give address. Yes, and also, so basically what I'm purchasing in the morning, I'm purchasing laptop. Okay, after that, what I do, so I'll be just looking at the Flipkart app, and I'll see, there will be an offer for laptop. So again, what I do, so if I have enough money, so because of that offer, what I do, I plan to purchase that laptop in the afternoon. So initially, my record will be stored in the first row. Yes. So in the first row, when I do the shopping in the morning, that record will be stored in the first row. Again, if I do shopping in the afternoon, like I'm basically purchasing laptop. So again, it will store the details of mine in the second row. And also if I again purchase it in the night, okay, let's see, probably in the night, I'll look for some, okay, I'll look for some accessories, like I like that. And even if price is reasonable, I'll go for shopping. So basically what I have done, I have purchased 3 items in a single day. So that means what relational model will do, it will store data for every attempt. I mean, for every purchase when I purchase new items in a Flipkart, it will store records in every row. Okay, so that means it has created 3 records. Imagine if the same thing is done by different people, like there are millions of people who are looking into a Flipkart and who is doing online purchasing. So what happens here? Data is increasing. Like there are 3 rows for individual people. Like if it's for 5 people, it will be like 5 3s are 15. Like there are duplicates, right? Like we are taking the same details, like name, same thing, phone number, same thing, address, same thing. Only the change is product name. Yes. So this is how data is stored in our relational model. Don't you think it's records are repeating? So instead of this, they have developed a concept of NoSQL, where what you can do is, instead of printing 3 records, instead of recording, that purchase details every time, what it does, it will just create 1 record for you. It will create 1 record in your name. So 1 record will be created in the name of Jeevita. So what it does is, so if I purchase in the morning, whatever product I purchase, that will be entered in the second column. If I do shopping again in the afternoon, that will be entered in the second column. Okay. And then if I do shopping in the night, same, whatever product I purchase, that will be mentioned in the third column. So what is happening? I'm reducing number of rows and I'm increasing a column. So we call this as a key value pair. Do you remember a dictionary? So what we do in dictionary? Dictionary, do you remember? Like it's a Python data structure where you store, where you store data in the form of key and value, keys and values. Here the key is Jeevita, and sorry, here the key is Jeevita, and values will be like your product names. So basically, instead of printing my details in 3 rows, what NoSQL database will do, it will just print in a single row. Okay, so that's how NoSQL database works. And this NoSQL database basically introduced, it's a model, NoSQL model, introduced in the year 2000, and this relational model basically introduced in 1970 itself. So it's an advancement, and it basically, one of the advantages, like we can save storage space, and also it will be easy for us to extract the records. And also it doesn't follow any structured one, like it's key value pair. And also one more thing is, like most of the companies, like top companies such as Facebook, Instagram, Google, they're using this NoSQL database. Even LinkedIn, because like every time when we log into a Facebook or when we log into our LinkedIn, it generates our data. Yes. Do you know like why Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, they're making so much money? It's because of you. You people are using it like all the 24 hours. You'll be in front of your mobile and you'll be in social media. I don't know like whether you are grabbing something from that or not, but you're profiting for the companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and for LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn is a best platform where you're learning. But just think about an Instagram, Facebook, and also WhatsApp. Like it made you to communicate with the people, but still, like you're communicating, and the company is making like, like can't even imagine about the profit that people are making in these companies. Okay, so this is the difference between relational model and NoSQL model. Is it clear? Yeah. So we learned like, a relational model means data will be stored in the form of tables, that is rows and columns. And so in order to store that data in a form of rows and columns, we need some software, right? The way we got DBMS in order to store data in our database. So we need one more software in order to store data in a form of table, that is rows and columns. So we call that software as, RDBMS. So we can see the program or a software which is basically used to manage relational databases in which data is stored in the form of rows and columns, which can be easily retrieved, managed, and updated. See, when we store data in a form of a column, So when we store data in a form of rows and columns, it's very easy for us to extract. Do you remember accessing? You might have studied indexing, slicing when you studied Python. What is the purpose of doing indexing and slicing? We started from strings. We took a string and we started extracting the characters. And then we moved on to the data structures like list, tuple, set. There we started extracting elements. Then we moved on to the NumPy array. Array basically stores an elements. So there also we started extracting values. Yes, no, extracting elements, extracting range of characters or range of elements. And then we came to a pandas. Then what we did, we extracted rows, we extracted columns. Yes. So it was easier for us because of this structured format, because of this relational model, because data was stored in the form of a table. If it was not in the form of a table, it would have been really hard for us to extract the data, right? But it would have been really hard for you to apply slicing or indexing part. Okay, so that's why RDBMS is a program which basically manages a relational database and which data will be stored in the form of rows and tables. This software or this program basically helps you in retrieving. You can extract the data. So whenever it's required to you, you can manage. And whenever, if you want to make any update or like if you want to make any modifications, even that could be done using this RDBMS. Okay. So you know about the different databases, like there are MySQL, Oracle, Microsoft Access, IBM, SQL Server, PostgreSQL, and I have mentioned MongoDB, and also Cassandra. I forgot to mention that there are also databases. But can you see the list of databases here? We call these databases as RDBMS databases. That means these databases basically use a relational model. That means they basically store data in the form of rows and columns. Oracle, these are the like top databases which companies are using nowadays. So one is Oracle, another one is MySQL, IBM database 2, and also MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server. And there is also Microsoft Access, and there is PostgreSQL. So these are the different databases which basically use relational model. That means data will be stored in the form of table, that is rows and columns. Clear? If someone asks you a question like what are the different relational models or the databases which use relational database, so you should be able to answer that. It's Oracle, MySQL, IBM, SQL Server, Microsoft Access, and PostgreSQL. Okay, and example for NoSQL is basically MongoDB and also Cassandra. So nowadays, yeah, people are using NoSQL database as well. There are MongoDB and also the Cassandra, like they're in a top place nowadays because most of them started using that because you can reduce that, repetition. The way I gave an example of Flipkart, like when you do sales, it will repeat the things, it will repeat your details. Instead of that, what they can do is just they can create a key value pair, and even it will be easy for accessing, easy for storing. So that's why. So compared to relational database management system, I mean relational model, NoSQL is somehow good just because of these two reasons. And also there is an disadvantage in NoSQL as well, because it will not have a structured format like the way we have it in a relational model. So yeah. So basically these two are used in different ways, relational models in order to deal with a table kind of data. Now, most of the companies who are doing projects on data science or machine learning, they are basically using this relational models, that is RDBMS. Getting clear? Are you getting the things? So, well, so we saw different RDBMS, right? Like Oracle, MySQL. And for this session and for this entire webinar, I'm basically using MySQL. So that is a reason behind like why I'm using MySQL. You can also use the different SQLs, RDBMS that I've mentioned here, like Oracle, IBM, Microsoft Access, and PostgreSQL as well. But I'm showing you like how to work with MySQL database. Right. So yeah. Any questions regarding database, RDBMS? If you have any question, I can just stick out them. Yes, you can get the recording of the session. It's basically a live stream. It will be available in YouTube channel. You can post your questions on Q&A. Yes, it's a Microsoft product. Yeah, difference between DBMS. It's a database management system which is basically used to store data inside a database. Relational database management basically used to store a data of the form tables, a data which follows a relational model format. Relational model means it has to be a relational model means that data should be in form of table, and it should have rows and columns. Only then you can store it. That's the difference between a database management system and relational database management system. DBMS doesn't use any of the model. So it's a static thing, okay? Like it will store data. It will store any data into a database. It's a general thing. RDBMS means it will store a particular data. That means if a data follows a relational model, only then that will be stored. Yeah. Any other questions? Let me look at Q&A. No questions. Even network model, even it's like a hierarchical model. Basically, it represents objects and entities, and also it represents in relationship between them. So what DBMS will be used mostly in data science projects in real-time basis. Basically, we use relational database only. Most of them are using relational models. And DBMS, like you can use MySQL, you can use Oracle, and also you can use Microsoft Access or Microsoft Server. Yeah. Do you want to know the advantage and disadvantages of SQL and NoSQL? Not really. We are not using NoSQL. Probably in the future we might use, but also right now we are using just, relational models. See, difference is like in a relational model, you basically store data in a table format, rows and column, like there will be a structured one. Okay. But in a NoSQL, it will not be a structure, like it will have a key valued page. And you can see the difference, like, a relational model, it's like a vertical scaling. Vertical scaling means you will store your records vertically, like you will add values, you will add records one by one. The example that I gave related to a Flipkart, like purchasing thing, just remember that to compare an example between what is relational and what is NoSQL. So basically what you do, you keep adding values. That is a vertical scaling. But what you do in NoSQL, you will add horizontally. Yes, no? So it's an horizontal scaling. NoSQL is horizontal scaling, and relational model is basically a vertical scaling. Even there's NoSQL can work for large amounts of data. And one of the disadvantages is lack of standardization. So there are many NoSQL databases, and there are still no standard ones. So people are in dilemma like which to use. Like recently it has started, and still it to make some standardizations. And also there should be some, even in the NoSQL database, people have to make some changes. Like it's basically now working on a few platforms only, like few operating systems. So it will not run on Linux operating system. So some modifications has to be done. Even it has a poor usability. NoSQL has poor usability because it doesn't have any management tools and accessing all those things. So to explore more on NoSQL, probably after 10 years, we can see improvisation or advancement towards NoSQL. Yeah, but most of the top companies are using so let's see, database DBMS is it's a software which helps you in storing data, any kind of data. That's it. Okay, what DBMS does is it acts like a software which takes your data and it will store. Okay, it can include everything, but the question is like how your data set is stored, like in what format. For that, we have a data models. We have different models, right? Like hierarchical, network. We have entity relationship. We have one more relational model. So if your data is in the form, if your data follows a relational model, then I can see, then you can use RDBMS. With that RDBMS, it's easy for you to do retrieving. It's easy for you to do manipulations. Okay. How data will be modified or sliced when data given in dictionaries and data science projects. So it's completely a data science question and a Python question. Okay, but still I'll answer you. So dictionary means you will have a keys and a value, right? How do you store a data? Data will be stored in the form of key and a value pair. Yes. So basically for dictionaries, we can't give indexing because it's an unchangeable. I mean, I can say it doesn't follow any indexing thing. It's an unordered one. If you have learned the properties of a dictionaries, like it's an unordered one, that means it doesn't follow any indexing. If it's not following any indexing, you can't access it by specifying your index value. What you can do is, so in a dictionary, values are basically defined in a key value pair. What you can do is, you can either extract keys or you can either extract values individually. You can store your dictionary in a variable, and then you can say like a dot keys, a dot values. So using that, you can extract keys and values, and also you can extract the pairs as well. Okay, that you have to study in Python. So that's it. Any other questions? Which database is mostly used? Pavan, basically MySQL, relational data model. Relational data model is basically the most used model, and the databases like Oracle, MySQL, and also people are using Microsoft Server as well. Yeah, anything else? So shall I proceed? Yeah. So we stopped at models, right? Yeah. So basically, for this entire webinar or for this entire session, so what I'm doing is basically we are basically using MySQL database. And let's see what is MySQL and how it works and many things. Okay, so this is a logo for MySQL. Yeah, and MySQL is an open source relational database that uses structured query language to interact with databases. So what do you mean by that? So we are using, one of the advantage of using MySQL is it's an open source, anybody can use. That's one of the advantages. That's why we are going with. Okay, so it's an open source. That's one of the advantage of using MySQL. What it does is basically it uses structured query language. MySQL is just a database. Okay, it's just a database which basically stores our data. That is, relational model data will be stored, and further operations, like if you want to retrieve or if you want to do modifications, then we need some language. That language, we call it as a structured query language. Okay, so MySQL is an open source relational database that basically uses SQL. SQL is basically a structured query language used to interact with the databases. So when you have a database, you have to interact with that, right? How do you interact? What will be the mediator between you and a database? So it's basically a SQL. Okay, it's like a language. The way we use programming language, like why do we use Python? So it basically does few things for you, right? In order to interact with the computer, like if you ask directly with the computer in your own language, like add 2 plus 3. So will it add? No, right? Because computer cannot understand your own language. If you want to make your computer to do tasks for you, obviously you have to learn the language which computer knows. Only then you can interact with the computer, and computer can help you in finding solution. Yes, no. That's why there are many programming languages like Python, Java, C, C++. So without knowing those languages, you cannot interact with the computer, and it can't give any answers for you, or it can't do any task for you. Similarly, if you want to interact with a database, you want some language. Only through that language you can interact. That language is basically a SQL. Okay, are you getting? MySQL is a database and SQL is a language. Yeah. So what it does is basically it stores data in the form of table and can be modified using SQL. Okay, so for storing, it basically stores data. We know that because it's a database. Obviously, it has to store data. And in order to do modifications, what you have to do is you have to use a SQL language. Okay. So you might get a question now, like there are many databases. So we saw like 5 to 6 databases, right? But still, why are we going with MySQL? Any idea? First one, it's an open source and very easy to use, but still people say it's difficult. But if you learn, it's very easy to use. Okay. And the second one, the cost effective, it's an open source, the free one, anybody can use that. Okay. And secured one. So security is very important. If we give an access for multi-users, obviously we have to protect some sensitive data. Only then things will be in a good way. Otherwise, a company might get into a loss. Okay. So it's a secured one, platform friendly. What do you mean by that? It works on all the platforms, like different operating systems such as Windows, Mac, Linux, and Raspberry Pi. That's one of the things. And also, yeah, that's it. So these are the different applications, and these are the different advantages why we are using MySQL. It's easy to use compared to other languages. It's cost effective. It's open source. Anybody can use. Anybody can work with MySQL, and it's a secured one. It gives you security and protection to secure things. And even our company is using this MySQL, and platform friendly. It can work on different platforms like Windows, Mac, Raspberry Pi. Okay, yeah. And if you want a comparison, you have to do that. You can compare different databases and you can see like how one is different from the other. I want you people to do that. Okay. So I said that there is a language in order to interact between user and the database. So that language is called as SQL. Okay, it's SQL, or we pronounce it as SQL. SQL. Okay, SEQUEL. It's a SQL. Okay, SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So the expansion of SQL is basically a structured query language. And yeah, as I said, SQL is basically a database programming language designed for retrieval and management of data in a relational database. So unlike Python, even SQL is a programming language, but it is a programming language and database. Okay, SQL is database programming language designed for retrieval. What do you mean by retrieval means? So when you store your data inside a database, you have to use that like whenever it's required for you, right? So how do you do that? That can be done, that queries can be written using the SQL. Okay, without this language, you can't do anything with our database. Remember that. And also it can manage data in relational database because so the database that we are considering is basically RDMS, right? So that's why. Got it. And also what it can do is, not what it can do, basically all relational database management systems such as MySQL, Oracle, MS Access, SQL Server. So these RDBMS, that is relational databases, are making use of the SQL language in order to interact with databases. Okay, it's a common language where you can interact with different databases like MySQL, Oracle, MS Access, and SQL Server. Clear? Okay, now you have a question like what SQL does. If someone asks you like what Python does, it's easy for you to answer. You can see different things like it can do arithmetic operators, it can perform logical operators, it can be used to define function, it can also be used to, you can loop through things, and also you can plot graphs, you can analyze data, you can do machine learning projects. But what if someone asks you like what SQL does? How do you answer? So as I said, SQL is basically a database programming language, which is basically used to create new databases and tables. So when I say MySQL database, so you will have it. So you have to create a database first, and then you have to create a table. So that is basically done with the help of SQL. Only then you can store data. Okay, you want some structured thing, right? Like when you go to a supermarket, how will you store your things, like whatever you purchase? So you will have a basket or a trolley, right? Like you'll take all things and you'll put it into that trolley. So same thing should be done even in our database. You have to put all your data into a database. How do you do that? That is basically done using SQL. SQL can create new database for you, and also it can create tables for you. And the next one, SQL can execute queries against a database. Queries in the sense, like it can ask a question and it can get an answer. Okay, it can execute queries against a database. It can ask questions. For example, let's see. So let's say I have a data related to Flipkart. Okay, I have Flipkart sales data. So I just want to filter it out data like, which has got higher sales. Or I just want to filter it out sales related to Bangalore. Okay, if my focus is only on a sales related to Bangalore, what I can do, I want to write a query against a database such as I want a record, or I want a data related to a Flipkart sales that is a sales in Bangalore. So that can be done using SQL, okay, SQL language. And the next one, SQL basically used to retrieve, update, and insert records into a database. SQL, it's not just, creating database tables or writing queries. By writing queries, what you can do is you can retrieve data. Like once you create a database and once you dump your tables or once you dump your data into that database. So whenever you want to do some project or when you want to access that data, so you can retrieve that. Retrieving in the sense, you can extract data. Okay, and also you can update it. Update means like, let's say you have some data, it's already there. Okay, what if the data is not right? Let's say Flipkart sales has data of mine. Okay, so Jivita name will be there, and also my things like details will be there, like my phone number, address, and the products that I have purchased. What if my spelling is wrong? Like if I want to make some changes with that name, okay, instead of Jivita, like something is missing. Let's say some words are missing in that name. So that modifications can be done. Okay, that is basically done with an update statement. And also we can insert new records into a table. So these things can be done using SQL. And also it can create stored procedures, waves in a database. So you can create a waves, and also you can create stored procedures. And also you can set permissions on tables like who can view, who can access. Okay, all these things can be done using SQL language. Yeah, understood about what SQL does? So there are basically different SQL commands, which basically serves different purpose in database. Okay, so basically I told you that SQL is a language which can do many things for you. So that many things can be differentiated into 4 things. That is, we call them as a types of SQL commands. Like whatever queries you execute, whatever functionalities or whatever things you do in database. So that is basically classified into 4 things. One is DDL, another one is DML, the third one DCL, and final one is TCL. DDL basically stands for data definition language, where you can do things like you can create a database, you can create table. Using alter, you can alter, like you can add new column, you can delete more, you can delete a column, and also you can change existing data type of a column. And using drop, you can drop a database, and also you can drop table. Truncate means, so basically you can also remove all the entries inside a table. You will have a table, okay, you just, if you want to remove all the elements, if you want to clear all the elements of a table, then you truncate. So don't worry, we'll be discussing all these functions in the coming classes, okay, in the coming sessions. So next one is data manipulation language. So basically what you can do is you can select data using select statements. You can select entire data, or you can select a subset of data, like subset of columns. And also you can insert new records into a table using insert function. And we have an update where you can update things. Update means like you can modify the existing data, you can change. And also you can delete the record, like particular record can be deleted. Do you remember all these things you did in Python? But you did it for like very small data. Yeah, like probably in list tuples. Yeah. So we being a data scientist, or the people who are working on data science and machine learning project, we just basically focus on data definition language and data manipulation language. So these two are our main focus. And DCL, that's basically a data control language. We have 2 things, grant and revoke. You know, what grant does is basically like, we can set permissions like who can view, who can access, who can do something with database. All these things basically done with a grant. Grant basically gives permission for doing, okay, like it's a restriction. And revoke, it's quite opposite to grant, like whatever permission is given by the grant, that I mean given by the grant, that will be removed by the revoke. It's quite opposite to grant. Grant gives a permission, okay, to access a database. If I use a concept of revoke, I can just remove that access, what is given to the user. Okay, and we have a transaction control language. We have 3 things there, commit, rollback, and save branch. It's basically commit, like when you do some changes, we use commit. Rollback means like when you do changes, but still you can retrieve things as it is. So we're not focusing much on DCL and TCL. Yeah, our main focus is only on data definition language and data manipulation language. Okay, and if you want to learn on DCL and TCL, yes, definitely you're welcome for that, and you can learn those concepts. All right. So these are the different SQL commands. Yeah, people might ask you questions like, what are the different SQL commands? And what SQL commands are basically used by the data scientist. So we use data definition. It's all about, creating database, creating table, all those things. And data manipulation, we are basically focused on like reading, as I was telling, like we basically focus on reading things, reading data. Okay, like we have select, we have insert, update, delete, and many more. We'll be seeing in the coming classes. All right. Okay, so we learned about a database, we learned about models, and also we learned like, so language in order to interact between user and a database. Okay, we have a language, but where do you execute that? Like where the program will be written? Where do you write that SQL queries? So for that, we have a editor, or I would say it's a graphical tool. We call that as a MySQL workbench. It's just exactly like our editor. The way, in order to do a Python, you have a different IDEs, right? Like integrated development environment, such as you have a Jupyter Notebook, you have Google Colab, you have PyCharm, and you have Visual Code. Yes, so you have different ideas where you can write your Python programming. Similarly, in order to deal with a MySQL with a MySQL database, so we have a different platforms like MySQL Workbench. You have a SQLite, and also you can use Oracle as well, because even it's using SQL language, even it works exactly similar. Okay, but we are focusing on just MySQL Workbench. Okay, which is easy to use. And yeah, most of the people are going with MySQL Workbench. Most of the companies are using this. So that's why even we are focusing on MySQL Workbench. Okay, it's basically like a graphical tool developed by Oracle. It's developed by Oracle. It's a child of Oracle company. So which is basically used to work with MySQL Server and databases. Okay, this editor, or we would say a platform or a graphical tool, basically developed in order to work with MySQL Server, basically a relational database service. You can only deal with a MySQL database, not with the others. Okay. So this MySQL basically provides data modeling, SQL development, and various administration tools for configuration. You can do modeling. You can also develop things there. And also there are a few administration tools. Like you can perform like whatever SQL commands I have discussed in the previous slide. All those things could be done in MySQL Workbench using SQL language. Okay, it's just like a platform. Okay, so before moving on to the creating database, I just want to show like how to install Workbench. Will you do with me? Yes? Are you ready with your laptops? Do you have laptops with you? So before starting with installation, if any questions, so you can just ask me so that I can clear it out your questions. Oh, ready with the laptop. That's good. People are so excited to learn SQL. Oh, that's great. Amazing. You can call me Tivita. Yeah, you have laptop. That's good. Any questions? Like whatever slides I have discussed? If any questions, quickly you can ask me so that I can clear. And then we'll move on to MySQL Workbench. No questions? So yeah, it's here. Yeah, it's like an IDE. It's like a text editor where you can write a SQL queries. Yeah, you can use Python instead of editor, but the one of the disadvantages is like you have to connect a database, everything. But this is quite structured one. You can use Python in order to, like you can read a database and you can do a manipulations. But inside, when you use MySQL Workbench, you'll get to know like how data is stored, how tables are created, how manipulations can be done. Using MySQL Workbench is very easy because in Python, you will use 4 lines of code in order to do same thing. But using MySQL Workbench, you can just get your data just in single line query. Okay, that's one of the advantage. Otherwise, I would have taken Python. Yeah, I'll share the link. So, and yeah, one more thing. So basically, we are giving access for you for our company database. Okay, you can just log in with this username, password, and this is a host name. So before that, you have to download your MySQL Workbench. Only then you can just log in with this username and password. So there, what you can do is you can just look at like what I do. Okay, and you can't do anything. Like you can't try or you can't do, like it's restricted. Yeah, so yeah. So let's do the installation part. So I'll show you the steps. I want you people to do it. Be a little fast. So we need to install MySQL Workbench. So moving on, we'll look like how to install MySQL Workbench on Windows. Okay, so I hope everyone are using Windows. So installation process is very similar to other operating systems as well. So just go to Google search or else just open this link. Copy link and let me share it with you. Sorry, Priya, no worries. Even if it's Mac, just select Mac there instead of Windows. That's it. Okay, just click on that link. You can see my screen, right? Yeah. So if you open that link, you'll see some window like this. Can you see it? Yes. Can I get few confirmations if it's done? Okay, that's good. If you're a Windows user, just select, like based on your configuration, just select that download and start downloading. Only if you download the MySQL workbench, then you can log in with username and password. Otherwise, you can't do it. So downloading. So after you download, just open the file to install. So you will find your downloaded file on downloads. Just click on that. So it will take you to this page. Yeah, Shweta, same thing. Just search for MySQL Workbench and select Mac there. Download for Mac. It's a community version we are using. It depends. If you're 64-bit, just select 64. If not, select 32. Yeah, to download for Mac, just select that Mac option. No, login is not required. So done with installing. So people have installed it. That's good. That's great. No, just select that custom. Select custom. Okay, so once you have downloaded it, just select custom. Open that link. So it says like custom. Once you click on that, once you check on custom, just come to next. So done with that. So once that is done, it will take you to this. You need to select the products. Oh yeah, that should be a Visual C++ in order to install this. Just skip sign in. So once you select a custom, you can come here in MySQL shell. Like you can select these things: MySQL server, MySQL workbench, and MySQL shell. So these are the three things that we are using. One is server, one is workbench, and one is shell. So we'll be doing things in workbench. Yeah, if it's yes, Rita, download Visual C++. It's okay. Don't worry if it's not possible to download. So today, basically, I'm showing you like how to create database and creating table and basic stuff. So from tomorrow, I'll be starting with SQL commits. So you can start practicing from tomorrow if it's not working, downloading things. Okay, but try to download it. It's working for others. Yes, that's good. Installed. That's good. Done with the installation? Still doing? Let me give 5 more minutes. So till then, if you have any questions, you can just post it in a Q&A section so that I can answer you. If it's done with the installation, so you will install these 3 things: server, workbench, and shell. And after that, what you do is basically you select next, and you say like open Windows firewall ports for network access, and then you have to create your username and the password. Okay. Any other source to learn, you can just go with W3 School, which is a very good platform to learn SQL. If you are a fresher, things are very clear in that, you can follow that. Even in W3 schools, you can practice code there and there. Done with the installation. Have you created like whatever username and whatever password you set? That will be like a local host. Okay. Local host means it's basically used by you. It's for your usage. Yeah, I'll share that document. Just a minute, I have a drive link. Let me share. I forgot to do that. Yeah, so this is a drive link where you find this PDF, like whatever I'm showing right now, that is which has installation things. And also I have given username, password, and also the local host. So when you want to connect to that company's database, just you have to do is like initially you will see a page like this once you install things. Okay, like if you are using local host, then you have to click on this local. You can see local instance. If you click on that, you have to use the username and the password that you have created it. Okay, because that will be an instance for you, which is created by you, and you can do things there. If you want to connect with a company's or some other database, just go to this database, and here you can see the first option, that is connect to database. Click on that. You will get something like this. Let me zoom it out. Can you see? It's basically asking you for host name, username, and password. So you need to enter it. Like once you do the installation part, you will get a screen something like this. Let me repeat it again. And you have to click on database, where you get a first option like connect to database, and just click on that. And it will take you to something like this. A new window will be created where you have to paste that host name. Remember, don't copy that host link. Instead of that, just select the entire text and paste it. If you copy link address and if you paste it here, it will not work. Remember that. So select the text and then paste it here in the place of host name, and make sure no spaces before or in between that link. Okay, so whatever link I have given host name, same thing has to be copied. Copy the text, not a link address. Copy the text and paste it on host name. And username, you can see, even I have given like DataMites 3 as something, and password, you can just type your password here and click OK. It will connect you to the company's database where you can see our database name practice data. And also you can see like whatever I do. I need to share drive in Q&A. Okay. Yes, I'm sharing it. Someone is saying like why SQL when you store data in MS Excel? So MS Excel, like there is a problem with security, safety and all. So it's kind of advancement. And also you can't share everything with, you can't give access to multiple users. And also, do you do queries in Excel? I think it's not possible. So it's basically done using SQL. So did you receive the drive link in Q&A? Host name is basically a link. Can you see that link? I have given it here. Copy this link, okay? Oh, you can't copy it and it will just open, right? Can't copy. I need to share a Word then. Just a minute. Let me share Word document then. All right, shall I share it in chat only? For just now, I'll share it in chat and I'll just upload that Word document in. Yeah, I'll send in Q&A. Don't use that slash of after .com, okay? It doesn't work. So I'm sending it here. Logged in? Were you able to log in? Yes, that's good. Okay, if it's done, let's begin. It's okay, even if it's not downloaded, you can download it later and you can just practice it. Okay, just listen to the things like how it works. So this is basically your MySQL workbench. Okay, where you can create database, where you can create table. It's not taking the password. Why? Rishi, make sure when you enter that host name, don't copy that link. copy the entire text, like normal copy thing. And make sure you don't have slash after that .com. And those who have, those who were able to log in with the given credential, you can see something like this, and you can see practice data there. You can see only one data because the access is given only for that. We have restricted it just for one database. Okay, let's begin the session now again. So this is a MySQL workbench where you can write query. You can see here, we call this as a schemas where you'll see all databases, tables, views, stored procedures, function. So we'll be focusing only on a database and the tables. Okay, so we call this as schemas. And you have a file. Suppose if you want to create a new query tab, you just have to click on this new query tab. So it will create a new page for you where you can write your query. Okay, go to file and you have to click on new query tab. So the next one is edit. It's for cut, copy, paste thing. And also you can find a text for selecting the basic one. So view not required. Query, basically you can, in order to execute everything, the shortcut is Control Shift Enter. Okay, if you want to execute the current statement, it's just Control Enter. And I think that's sufficient. Okay, that is a shortcut. And if you want to do it manually, so this is for executing the selected portion of the script or everything if there is no selection. That means when you write some program or some queries, it will execute the entire page when you don't select a specific thing. And this basically execute the statement under the keyboard cursor. Okay, wherever you have your keyboard, cursor, only that particular line will be executed. Okay. Make sure you copy that host name text. Don't copy the link, copy that entire text and paste it in the host name. That might be the issue. Yeah. So, understood? So this basically, if you click on this, it will execute the query for that entire page. And this is just for a selected line. That means wherever you have a cursor, that particular query will be executed. And also you can limit number of rows, like whatever, like how many numbers you want to fetch. And then, that's it. If you know so much, that is sufficient. And also here you have a different things. Like if you want just the right side, that is navigator and the screen, you can click on this. Okay, it gives you navigator and the SQL editor thing. Okay, and if you want to see a terminal, like output panel, so it basically gives something like this. You'll get one more terminal here where you'll find your data table. Like when you execute a query, you'll see your data table. And here, even you can select this where you can see like SQL additions, like something will be there here. So that's not required for us. So our focus is only on this. Okay. Yeah. So let's see like how to create a database, shall we? Can you see a PowerPoint sharing? So let me show like how to create a database. So we studied things like what is database, what is data model, RDBMS, MySQL database, and also SQL language. So now we are at a right time and the right thing, like we are basically into SQL now. We are jumping into a SQL. So from now onwards, we'll be just focusing on queries, like how we interact with the database using SQL language. Okay, the first thing, very basic thing, you need to learn how to create a database. So we have a general syntax, that is, you have to write a keyword as create database. I think you can see that in a bold letters. So that is a standard word, that is create database, general word. And whatever you have it within, less than and greater than that keyword, that is basically a database name which can be changed. Let's say, for example, I want to create a database name as, I want to create a database with name employee details. So you just have to use a keyword, create database. They are the fixed ones. Okay, and you have to write a database name, which is employee details. Okay, shall we do that? So let me go back to the MySQL workbench. So it's here. I'm showing you how to create database. And how do you comment it? Like if I want to, you might have learned about commenting, right? Like if you want to give a description like what you are doing. So you can just use 2 hyphens. That is a shortcut for comments. So we are trying to create a database with the name employee details. So this is my database name. I want to create a database. So how do you create it? You know the syntax, right? So what is the general syntax for creating database? It's create. It doesn't mean that you have to give capital only. It's a case. It's not case sensitive. So you can use either a small letter or the capital letter. It's left to you. All right. So this is basically a general syntax to create a database. It's just create database, and we need to specify a database name. Okay, this is basically a general syntax. Now let me show you the actual one. Now let's create our database. Okay. So yeah, let's create it. So create database. And I need to specify the database name. So I have given a question like you need to create a database with employee details. So let me take it as employee underscore. It's going to be details. And let's close it with semicolon. It's not mandatory, but still let's go to close it with semicolon whenever you use multiple statements. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm creating a database with a name employee details. You can see here. So you have a database just like car data, MySQL demo, practice data, and sys. The people who log in with a credential that I've given, you can see, I think you can see just practice data. Yes. So we have restricted you to just that practice data. That's why I'm showing you just that database name. Okay. So basically here I'm trying to create a database. Create database is a keyword. And I have given our database name as employee details. Let's run this. So there are 2 ways. You can use either this or this. So this basically execute the statement under the keyboard cursor. Okay, let me run this. So can you see in the bottom, it says like create database. If it's in a green color right mark, it says like no error or no mistake in your code. If it gives like into mark, like in a red color, it says like there is some error that needs to be sorted out. Okay. So create database, and I have specified a database name. But still I can see just 4 databases. So what you have to do? Very simple. You have to refresh it. In order to refresh, just click on this. You can see an option here, up arrow and a down arrow. If you click on that, it will create a new database for you. Can you see employee details? Here it is. Yes. Don't worry, Kushbu and Hussain. Even if it's getting error, don't worry. Just log in with local instance and practice this. Log in with your own local instance and just practice things. We'll sort it out that by tomorrow. Okay, so it's a create database and database name. Let's create one more. So create database. Yes, Devashish. Basically, the access is given only for the practice data, like whatever databases I'm creating, that you can't see there. Okay, only the database creation will not be seen. Rest of the things will be seen there. Okay. Yeah, these queries will work in online SQL compilers. You can just try with that as well. So let's create one more database with a name. Let me say student. let me say student details. So you will create a keyword as create database and just the name. And let's run this. So it gave a green color one. That means the query has executed. And in order to see that database, you just need to refresh it. So you can see student details here. So this is how you create database, MySQL Workbench. So now let's move on to the next slide. So this is how you create a database. Now, do you want to drop a database? You can also drop, but you can't change a name. So whatever database you have created, that can also be dropped. That can be removed completely. So it's just a drop database. That is a keyword, and you just need to specify your database name. So here is an example. So we have created employee details table, and now let's just drop it. Let's just drop that employee details. Okay, let's do that. Drop database is a keyword, and you just need to specify the database name. Let me move on to MySQL Workbench. Just understand like how keywords are working. Okay, don't worry if things are not working, focus here. So I need to drop, so it's drop database. Drop database is a keyword, and you just need to specify the database name, which is I'm basically trying to remove. You can remove employee details. I'll remove student details. Okay, so let's see. I'll remove student details. Yeah. Make sure you use a same thing like whatever you have created. Database name should be same. Otherwise, it just gives you an error. So let me run this and let's see whether it works or not. Basically, we are trying to remove the database. Let me run this. And let me refresh. So you can see there is no database here. There is no student details database. It's removed. So for creating, it's create database name. For dropping, it's drop database and database name. Done. Truncate basically removes all the records from the table. Drop will remove the entire database. Truncate comes under table. So this is how you drop. The next one is, do you want to see all the existing databases that you have it in a MySQL Workbench? It's very simple. You just have to take a keyword, show databases, which is going to return all the databases that are available in MySQL. Okay. So you can just write a code as show databases. This will be a query in order to see all the existing databases in a MySQL Workbench. So let's print, it's going to be show databases. So it's show databases. Let's run this. Yes, it's going to fetch, it's going to return you all the databases that are available in MySQL Workbench. Can you see? So it's car data, employee details, information schema, MySQL demo. Okay, and there is no student details because we have dropped it. Getting things? Let me move on to the next one. So done with showing databases. Now let's move on to the table creation. So what is table? So SQL table is basically a collection of data which is organized in rows and columns. Because we are dealing with a relational model, that means obviously data has to be in a table. So this basically gives you an explanation of table. Each row basically uniquely represents a record and each column is represented as fields. Okay, or else you can call it as attributes as well. And here is a table, employee ID, name, company, job. This table basically gives you an information related to an employee, like employee ID, employee name, company, and what they are working, and also the designation. So you can see. Okay, this is basically a table which is in the form of rows and columns. Now we need to create a table. How do you create a table? So in order to create a table, first you have to specify your keyword as create table, and then you need to specify a table name and then column name. Along with that column name, you just need to specify the data type that particular column is taking. Similarly, you can try with column 2, column 3, and so on. And you can see an example here. Create a table employee. Basically, let's try to create an employee table with a column name as employee ID. Employee ID is numbers. So obviously, the data type has to be integer. And name is a string kind or a character. So you have to take varchar, and company, even that is a text kind of data. So it has to be varchar, and job is also varchar. That means variable characters. So before creating a table, let's see what are the different data types. And let's come back to this create table. All right. Yeah. So we have different data types, right? You might have studied these data types in your Python as well. So data type of a column basically defines like what sort of data an object can store, such as a data can be integer, it can be character, it can be money, it can be date and time, it can also be binary, and so on. Yes, data types can be of different type. It can be numeric, where you see integers, floats, and data character. Character in the sense it's a string data or a text kind of data. And then it's date and time. So, probably when you deal with when you take a data set, so it might contain date and time kind of data as well. Like if you take a superstore sales, it will mention like order date, shipping date, everything. So in order to deal with date and time, so we have these data types. So these are the basic and major data types that will be seen in SQL. So numeric means, so we have a different data types in numeric, like big integer, which takes a range like -9. It's very hard to count, but I can see it in 10. You can just imagine it in 10 powers. And integer, it's a small one. Like S basically stands for size. It takes values from 21474836472. That's a certain range for integer. And for small integer, it's just like -32,768 to 32,767 bytes. This is a range of bytes that it's taking, okay? Tiny integer means it just takes values like 0 to 255. And if it's a float, you can use a data type as a decimal, and you can specify your size in the sense the range, okay? If it's 0 to 225, like whatever size you want. If you want a 30 bytes, you can say 30, comma, you can specify the number of decimal points. D stands for number of decimal points. Okay, usually when it's an integer, we go with int, and we don't specify the size. It's okay even if you don't specify, you can just say int. And when it's a float, you can go with decimals. Okay, these are the different numeric data types. And the next one is date and time. So there are different dates, like date is basically, it will have a format like first it's an year, and then month, and then date. So this will be the format for date, standard format. And for time, it's going to be first hours, minutes, and then seconds. And for year, it's going to be YYY. Okay. So this is about date and time. And the next one is character. Character means it's a string kind of data. So where you'll be dealing with the text kind of data. So we have character, that is short form, it's char, which basically takes characters between 0 to 225. This is a range. And varchar, you can just specify your size there. It takes huge amount, like 0 to 65,535 characters. And even text, it doesn't take a range, like it can include a huge number of characters. So that's how a text works. So these are the different characters that we use. Basically, we use char for a small text, like for name, company, and all. And also you can use varchar. So for integers, like we use int there, and for character, we use varchar. Here. So these are different things about data types. And also we have SQL constraints. So what are these constraints? So we call them as DBMS keys. They are basically an attribute which help you in identifying a unique record or a row of data in a relation. So what do you mean by that? I'll come back to that. So we have different keys like not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, check, and default. So these are the different SQL constraints. So you can specify these constraints when you create a table, so that these constraints are basically a set of instructions that we are providing for a particular column. So let's see one by one. First, let's see the definitions of each one, and then I'll show you like how to create it. Okay, so we are basically speaking about a SQL constraint. So the first SQL constraint is not null. You might have studied about a null concept. When you consider array data, data can include empty values. We call them as a null values. Yes? So when people start collecting data, so let's say I'll generate one Google form for you and I'll ask you to fill. Okay, I'll give out different fields like name, age, and also like your work experience and your background, like what you have done, what is your graduation, and what's your job designation. So I'll create one form for you like this, and I'll share it with you. You have to fill that form and you have to submit it to me. So when everyone fills that form, I'll get a data. Yes, no, that's how we collect our data. Now the question is, when I create those fields, what I do in the place of name, okay, so you'll have a name, phone number, everything. What I do, I'll specify for whatever that column I have created, like phone number column or phone number block or entry. For that, I'll specify it as not null. That means when you start entering values, some people, what they do, they don't like to give the phone numbers. So what they do, they'll just skip that. Okay, when I specify it like not null, if you don't fill that block, like for phone number block or a phone number cell, it won't accept the form. Okay, when you click on done, it will not consider, because I have specified the condition like not null, and you have to specify some number there. You have to either write your phone number or some numbers, like which takes a format. Only then you will be able to upload or you will be able to submit that form. You might have experienced this, but when you log into some websites, like when you look for, if you come to a DataMites itself, like if you come to a DataMites website, and if you want to download some course details or course syllabus, you will get some thing, right? Like you will be asked to fill a form. You'll get a form, like give your name, mail ID, and the phone number. So if you fill just your name and a mail ID, and if you don't fill your form, if you don't fill your phone number, it will not submit and it will not show you the course structure. Yes, no, because someone who has created that form has restricted that condition. They have specified it like not null. Not null means it ensures that column cannot have a null values. Okay, so you can't leave that column as a blank. If it's null, it will not take. So that's how not null constraint will work. Similarly, next one, unique. It ensures that all values in a column are unique. Sometimes IDs can be repeated. So in order to avoid that, we use unique constraint. And the next one is primary key. It's just a combination of not null and unique keys. So that means it takes unique values. So instead of specifying not null and uniqueness for a particular column, what you can do, instead of not null and unique, you can just give primary key. Okay, it's a combination of not null and unique keys. So foreign key, it basically prevents actions that would destroy link between tables. So that means this foreign key basically helpful while joining tables. Okay, so it prevents, like if someone is joining and if something is happening while joining or while modifying, that could be prevented with this foreign key. If you specify it as foreign key, it will take care of this. And we have default, sets a default value for a column if value is specified. So let's say instead of like sometimes even you might forget to write things, like if it's general thing, like let's say if you are from India, then if data is related to India, what we can do is someone who is collecting information, what he can do is he can just set default value for that particular country as India. Even if the person who is filling that form or the place where data is collecting, even if they don't specify the country name, by default, it will take it as India. Okay, that's how default key is going to work. And check basically ensures that values in a column satisfies the specified condition. So you can specify a condition. So let's say like if you are collecting data related to the people who are less than 30 years, what I can do is I can restrict myself the condition as that age column has to be less than 30. If person is trying to log in that website with the people who are whose age is greater than 30 couldn't log in, because we have set a permission or we have set a condition like it has to collect a field or it has to collect a record only with the people whose age is less than 30. That's how check constraint is going to work. Okay, it will ensure that value in a column satisfies the specified condition or not. So these are the different constraints that we'll be using. So I'm not going in depth about this. So if you know the knowledge like why not null, why unique, why primary, why foreign default set, that's more than sufficient. Okay. That's what they expect as well. Done. Shall we move on to creating table? Yeah, let's go back to this. So I need to create this table. Yeah. So I'm basically trying to create a table for this data, employee ID, name, company, job. So how do you create it? I need to create a table for this. So, and the code is here, syntax is here. First, I need to take a keyword as create table, and then you need to specify table name and then column name. You have to specify data type. If it's required, you can give constraint. Then again, second column, data type. Then third column, data type, comma, fourth column, data type. And also you can specify the constraint. Okay, yeah. So let's move on to the MySQL workbench and let's see how to create a table. So while I'm here, so basically I'm trying to create my table inside a practice data. Okay, so how do you make this practice data as a default database? So basically when you deal with, there are different databases and you should be aware that in which database you are doing, in which database you are creating a table. So you have gotten access only for practice data. So what I do, the easiest way is you can just right click on that practice data and you can see set as default schema. That is the one method. Otherwise, you just have to use, like you have to say use, you have to specify your database name, like practice data. Okay, without setting it to a default database, it doesn't work. Make sure you use either use practice data or else you will right click on that database and you will set it as select default. See, if you click on this, select as default schema. So that will be the default one. And whatever operations I do, entire thing will be stored inside that particular database. So let's say it's use database. Okay. Already I have needed, like I have set that. I've set it to the default one. It's okay. Let's run this as well. Yeah. So what is our main focus now? We are basically trying to create a table inside a practice data database. So what is the keyword for that? So I need to create a table. It's going to be, so create table. And I'm trying to create a table as employee. So first, let's see, are there any tables inside this? Oh, it's employee 1, employee 2. All right. So I'm creating a table with let's say employee data. This is my table name. I'm creating a table with a name employee data itself. Okay, let me close it. Oh, not closing. So done. So create table and you need to specify a table name. And now you need to start giving values, right? So how do you do that? So just open bracket and inside you have to specify the values that you need to do, like that you need to create. So what was your table? It's employee ID was the first column name, right? And name, company, and a job. So let's create it. Yeah, so it's going to be create table employee data. So I need to specify the column name. The first column name is employee ID. Okay, and the data type, it's basically an integer. Let's say int. Okay, come on. My second column name is name. So name is basically text kind of data. So it's name. And I'll specify the varchar. Data type is character. So varchar of, let's see, some 30 characters. Okay. And then it was a company. So let me create a column, another one, which is company. And let me specify the data type. That is, even this is a varchar. That is because company name will be in a text kind of thing. So let's see 30 itself. And the final one was job. And the data type, even this is varchar. You can also use character as well. Okay, yeah. So this is how you will create a table. Done with it. We started with a create table keyword, and then we specified the table name. And then I have specified the column num. Column number 1, that is the first column is employee ID. Employee ID takes integer value, so it is int. And then it's going to be the second column, which is name, and the data type is var character, and the company var character. Job is also a text kind of data, so I took var char of 40. And do you want to specify any constraints? Let's say employee ID has to be not null and it should be unique, right? So let me give primary key. So it's just a primary key, and within a bracket, you just need to specify employee ID. Yeah. And make sure you close the bracket here. So no error. If it's any, and make sure even this is E. So it's giving me an error because the key is repeated twice. So just remove one key. Oh, sorry. So you have to remove this key. Yeah, now it's perfect. So let's create a table. Just run the cell. So it says like table employee data is created. Okay, do you want to see like how many tables are there inside this? It's just show tables. And let's run. It will show you all the existing tables. So right now I have created employee data, and before that it was like 2 other tables like employee and employee 1. The way you see show databases, same thing has to be applied even in order to see the tables. So this is how creating table is going to work. So we have created a table, that's it. Like now what I want to do is I need to insert values. How do you insert? So for that we have a function called as insert function. Let me go back to our PPT. So here you can see insert values. I'll come back to the drop later. Yeah. Let's insert values. Insert into is basically used to insert a new records into the table. It's just you have to take insert into and you need to specify a table name. And if you are inserting for all the columns, no need to specify that column. You can just take employee, that is, or your table name, and you can take values inside a tuple or inside a parenthesis. You can just pass your values. And make sure if you are passing string data or a character data, that has to be within a single quote. So let's see this. Let's try to insert values into a table. All right. Let me go back to our workbench. So I'm basically trying to insert values. So let's say insert into. So insert into what? I'm basically inserting into a table name called as employee data. This is my table. And it has to be values. We need to insert values. So value show. So employee ID has to be integer, which is 2.1. And name, let's say John. And company I should give, let's say Amazon. And let's say the job or the designation is basically, let me say HR. Just close this. And yeah, semicolon. So this is going to insert a record into your table. And you want to know like whether it's inserted or not. For that, what we do is we use select statement. Okay, we use select statement. It's select. Let's return all the columns, like whatever it's inside the table. Let's select star from employee table. We'll be discussing about select in tomorrow's class, tomorrow's session. Yeah. So it's going to be select star from employee data. Let's run this and let's see whether it has inserted values into it or not. So we don't get any error. It's basically right mark. So it's going to print you the record. Clearly you can see. So we have inserted a value like 201, John, Amazon, HR. So the first record has been inserted into our table. Let's try one more time. Let's insert one more record. So same thing. So it's going to be insert into its employee table, or let's say it's employee data. That is our table name. And we need to specify the values. And the values are basically, let's take an ID as 202 and name, let's see, it's Mary. And let's see, the company in which she's working is basically Google. And yeah, and the designation. So let's see, which is an IT head. Yeah, so let's insert, this is a second record that we are trying to insert into our table. So let's run this. So do you want to see whether it's inserted or not? Oh, it's giving error. Why? Yeah, I wanted to do this, but it's showing an error. Can I get a few answers for this? Why I'm getting error? Yeah, foreign key declaration as it, yes. So it says like primary error. So we had given a constraint, like we have restricted that ID has to be not null and it should be unique. But what I did here, so I'm trying to replace or I'm trying to insert record with the same ID. That's why it's giving you an error. Understood? That's how a constraint works. All right, yeah, that's good. So let's run this. Okay, let me change the value now. Let me change it to 202 and let's run this. So now it has to work. Yeah, 201 is an error because it's repeated one. And we have specified a constraint as primary key for an employee ID, right? That's what. So let's run this and let's see whether it has inserted or not. It's fetching. It's taking time to fetch. Yes. So 2 records are inserted. Clear? So this is how you create a table. And do you want to know like how to drop a table? How do you drop a table? So it just drop. So here is a code. Let me show you a code first, and then let me come back to this. So insert into is done. So drop the table. It's just drop table keyword, and you just need to specify the table name. Okay. So we are not, being a data scientist, we are not focusing on creating things, but sometimes, if your data structure, if it's not in a CSV format or if it's not in a table structured format, what you have to do is, first you have to create a columns, you have to create a data type, you have to specify constraint, and then you have to dump that table into this database. Okay, for that, at least for that knowledge, this is very important. So let's try to drop this employee table. Let's drop it. Let me drop employee data, which we have created it. Yeah, let's drop it. I'm saying drop table employee data, and this is my table. Let me run. So yeah, query has executed. So let's check for the show tables and let's see whether do we have that employee data or not. Let's see whether it has removed or not. Oh, it's removed. So using drop table, we are going to remove the table. Here, the database, it's drop database. For table, it's going to be drop table. And this is show table. So yeah, we are done for the day. So basically, we did like how to create database, how to create a table, and also we learned like how to specify data type and also the constraints. So you can explore more on this. And from tomorrow onwards, I mean for tomorrow's session, we'll discuss about advanced SQL commands such as select, distinct, and operator, between operator. I'll show you like how to dump a data set directly into this database. I'll show you. And let's take that data set and let's do a querying part. Okay, is everything clear for this session? And any more questions? If any questions, you can just post it in our Q&A so that I can clear it out. And then we'll end the session. Yeah, like if you want to insert a table, like if you want to insert records into a table, you have to write that insert into again and again. So that we don't do, okay? Like basically what we do is, like we will be having a ready data set. Like basically it will be like either CSV format or some other format. Like what we do, we take that table directly, we upload into this. Shall I show you today itself? Then it will be easy for tomorrow. Let me show it again. I'll repeat tomorrow. Yeah. So it's very easy uploading a file into this. So this is my database, right? So practice data is my database. I want to import a data set. Okay, so our focus is not basically on creating a database or creating a table. It's just like we basically deal with our data set, and we try to extract things. So what we do is, so practice data is my database. Just right click on that. Okay, just right click on that. What I do is, can you see table data import wizard? And select that. This table data import wizard is basically going to help you in importing data set into a MySQL workbench. Okay, so this is what we do. So let me select this. So you'll get something like this. You have to select the file path. Let's browse from the, and let's select it from file directory. Okay, so yeah, I have this car data set. Probably I'll be using this itself. So let me select this. Okay, and let me make sure it's in a CSV format, and let me open it. Okay, so it has selected the path, and now you just need to click on next. You can see the steps, right? So once this is done, you can just check on, drop table if exists. So because it's already creating, if already that, car data set is existing inside that practice data, so let's drop it. Otherwise, like it's already not that, you can just uncheck it. So it's always good to check it. Now let me click on next. And yeah, so it will just show you the data type. It's already given, okay, it's in ready data only. Like, see, model, it's text, year, it's integer, price, it's obviously it has to be integer. Okay, let me click on next. So it will prepare import first, and then it will import data file. So just click on next. It will complete these two steps, and then it will import a data set into your database. It takes some time, okay? Oh, can't see any word, any stuff. Oh, sorry. It went off. Now you can see. Simple. You just need to select your database, right click, okay, and you can see a table data import wizard. Just click on that. Now, can you see the screen? You got table data import. Yeah, I think you can see it now. So you just need to browse. If you browse, it will take you to the file directory where you have to select your data set. Just click on your data set, okay, like whatever you have downloaded it. So I'll share this data set prior to tomorrow's session. I'll share the drive link, like whatever I've shared right now, in the same drive link, it will be there. So you can just click on that, click on open, and below you can see the next step. Just click on next. Don't worry, we'll share that data set with you. I'm just showing the steps. We'll do this tomorrow again, and just click on next. So it's going to show you things like this, preview of data set, and then, yeah, just click on next. It's going to do the execution for you. It's preparing import, so it has begun import. Once it has imported, you'll see that car data set inside a practice data set. Okay, just refresh it. It's still doing, okay? Once you do this, let's see if like, it will show you that table. Oh, it has imported it. So we have, can you see? So we try to import the car data set into our practice database. So we got the things. So car data set is successfully uploaded into this practice database. I'll upload that car data set. You can just try uploading. Otherwise, we'll do it tomorrow in tomorrow's session. So these are the basic things. I hope you got the things like, I hope you got a chance to learn like what is database, what are the different data models, and what are the different DBMS and also databases. And also we discuss things like what is MySQL, why it is, and SQL language, and also we discuss things like MySQL Workbench. And I request you to download MySQL Workbench before you come for the next session. It's good to do because we'll be doing with SQL queries from tomorrow's session. So it's good to have that. And also I showed you like how to create a database, how to create a table, and also I showed you like how to import or how to connect data set into a database. So I hope everything is clear for the session and everything is clear for the day. And thank you for coming for the session. And let's meet tomorrow. Even tomorrow, the same timing is going to happen for 10 to 12. And the session is going to repeat even for the next week, Saturday and Sunday. It's for 10 to 12 timing.
Okay. So thank you so much, Jivita, for the wonderful session.
Thank you, Mom.
So if you have any doubts, you can post it now.
Do you have any queries?
Dataset will be shared with you.
Yeah, I'll share it. I'll upload it right now.
Yeah, you will see, you will find the recording in, see, it will be uploaded in YouTube in DataMites channel. Any other queries? So be ready for tomorrow's session at the same time.
So
Okay.
data set has got uploaded in your drive. I think you can see that. Just download it and just get ready with a MySQL Workbench for tomorrow's session and be ready at 10 p.m. Sorry, 10 a.m. I'm sorry. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jivita. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So let's
Thank
end
you.
the session.
Yes.